Hi everyone, welcome back to Natalie's Witchy Wisdom, the Purple Broom Apothecary. Today I'm going to be doing another video for the Witching It Up series. Actually, I thought about starting this as a new series, so I might put it as like a sub-series, I don't know. I wanted to focus a little bit on the herbs that we use and what we use them for, and give a little bit of information about that, because I know those videos are widely sought by people. I get questions all the time from people that ask, what do you recommend as an herb for this? What do you recommend as an herb for that? So I'm going to be doing a little bit of an herbal type series. I might put it under between now and the time I get done this video, I may change my mind. I might call it the Herbal Cabinet, or I might just put it as part of the Witching It Up series. But today I'm going to be talking about Mandrake Root. Mandrake Root. Now, this is a root, so it is an earth element type of thing. I will tell you right now, Mandrake Root, there are 6 species and they are all poisonous. So this is a poisonous herb. Please do not ingest it. People did used to ingest it, but you have to be really cautious. So I just recommend you don't do it. I would recommend anytime you work with any type of poisonous herb, use gloves if you're going to be handling the herb. As you can see, this package is still sealed, hasn't even been opened yet. I have plans for this baby, but I thought that I would talk about the Mandrake Root, its uses in magic, where you see it. I get a lot of questions about this particular herb because people watch Harry Potter and they see in the first movie where they pull the little mandrakes out of their pots and they're screaming, and now you gotta cut it up. So it was said that the Mandrake Root would scream when pulled from the earth. So never pulled one out myself, but I heard or have read that they used to tie a black dog to the root, and they would entice the dog with food and get out of earshot, and the poor dog would die pulling the root out of the earth to get to the food. Don't know if that's true, but that's something I read. So, Mandrake Root. Again, element, earth. It is masculine in nature. It is related to the planet Mercury, so it's ruled by Mercury. It is a very strong herb, and it's one that surprisingly, even though it is poisonous in nature, it is often used in love spells or to induce passion. So Mandrake Root is something that's very good for protection, for love. If you are familiar with the website Herbal Riot, they have some good information on how to activate and use Mandrake. I'll give you that information here, but just go to herbalriot.com and that gives you a lot of information. On their website, they do mention that Mandrake Root has been known as far back as 1700 BC. It's mentioned in the, I believe it's the, not elders, Eber's Papyrus. It is mentioned there. It was often used during the Middle Ages in combination with things such as poppy and belladonna as not an analgesic, an anesthetic. They would use it as an anesthetic. So what they would often do is just let the person smell the vapors of the combined herbs, and when they were in a nice deep sleep, then the surgeon can go on and do what they had to do. Again, it's not something I would ingest, because being able to know how much someone can ingest relies on a lot of things. You need to know their weight, their health condition, any underlying health conditions they have, such as heart conditions. You would need to know what medications that person's currently taking and what all they've taken into their body, because as with anything, it interacts with others. So again, I recommend you do not ingest this. Now, again, this herb was used quite often in fertility magic. It was used to induce passion. It's mentioned in the Bible in the Old Testament. I believe it was Ruth who used it to try to encourage passion between her and her husband to hopefully have a child. It's known to have narcotic properties, and that's why it's so good at being used as an anesthetic. It's often used in health magic as well. So love, fertility, protection, increasing sexual desire, anything like that. These are the go-to herb for that, or is one of the go-to herbs for that. on the website herbalriot.com, they do make a recommendation that the mandrake root you're going to use is placed on the altar undisturbed for 3 days and then soaked overnight in warm water, and it is then ready to use. I use this myself. I have used it in protection spells, particularly things related to the home, because being a root, it's in the earth. So when you have your home is what roots you, right? That's your place on earth. So I find that it's very useful to have some of this. It's recommended that you plant it around the perimeter of your home for protection. It's said to be to grow under the gallows of hanged men. Don't know how true that is either, but that is one of the things that comes up when you look in the research. It was known to take a female or male shape. There were two different forms, and I think that probably had something to do with either the imagination of the people picking it, or B, it could be the type of species, because again, there are 6 subspecies of this plant under it. It's known by a lot of different names. Mandragora is one of them, and that actually comes from a Greek root word which means bad for cattle. And think about it, if the cows are eating the grass, they're eating the dirt, they pull the root up, they eat it, they get sick, they die, or they get very sick. So that makes a lot of sense when you stop and you think about it. It's also was carried by the Norse. They would use it as like a protector for their home. They'd dress it in clothing. And some people wrap some of the herb in a dollar bill and carry it in their pocket to help increase. Of course, if you're wanting fertility, you want your money to be fertile, you want it to spread. So I think that's kind of the theory behind that it will allow the money to multiply in your pocket and bring money. So I have used it sometimes in money drawing spells. Some of the other names too, by the way, a couple that I thought were very interesting. The Alarun was the ones that the Norse would call it. Satan's apple, the devil's testicles. That's my personal favorite. Those are all some names that you might see this by. There are 3 to 5 common species. I think there's 6 to 7 total species, and it's just one of those things that a lot of people use for various different things. Now, I have a different use for this. I use mandrake root for protection, as mentioned. I use it in money drawing spells, but I also use it in flying ointment, which I will be showing later this season on Witches of the Moon. If you are going to be using it in any way that it contacts with the skin, please remember that this is poisonous. Too much of it can harm you, and you want to use gloves. You want to be very, very cautious and not do anything that would harm yourself. So if you're going to be applying it topically, as with a flying ointment, you want to make sure that you're using very small quantities, the smallest quantity that you can, and be sure that you are aware of any underlying heart conditions, lung conditions, any allergies that you may have to any of the ingredients, including anything that may be in mandrake root that you may be allergic to. And just bear in mind that it's not something that you want to go make a tea for your lover with. Okay? That's not going to work. Might work real well, actually. I wouldn't recommend you do it. Again, not to be ingested. I would caution you against ingesting it in any way once again. But it is an extremely useful herb in a lot of different ways, and so I encourage you to do a little bit of reading about it, find out a little bit about it, maybe talk to somebody who's used it, especially if you're interested in working with mandrake root. Find someone who's worked with it and find out what dosages work for them. If you Google mandrake root, you will find that there are recipes for flying ointments that utilize this. There's one lady, Sarah Lawless, I think her name is. She has a blog where she actually talks about how to make flying ointment the old-fashioned way, where you actually go to the butcher and get the pig fat and render the fat, which is a process all on its own. And if you know how to do it, you're patient, it's great. And the little crispins are really good. But if you're vegetarian, obviously you don't want to do that, so don't. Anytime you're working with any kind of a poisonous herb, you do want to be cautious, so just bear that in mind. But that's a little bit about mandrake root. Check it out. Good stuff. Works well. Very strong. Very potent. And I hope that you enjoyed. Thanks so much. I would love to see your feedback. Blessed be.